Good morning. On behalf of the Anti-Racism Committee and Adult Education, I'd like to welcome you. I see most of the same faces that were here last week, and that attests, I know, to her excellent presentation last week. All the simplest things are so hard sometimes here. Took me 2 years to learn. So welcome to all of you, and I know you're eager to hear from Dr. Simesha McEachern. And so I'm just going to let her start because there's so much material that she needs to cover this second week, and we appreciate her being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm happy to see so many of you that I saw last week, and I'm really happy to see some new people as well. So welcome, and I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who is responsible for this, for the tech help, to the invitation, to the space. I just want to say thank you. We are going to go ahead and get started because, as Judy said, there is a lot of material to cover. Of course, being a teacher, I have to do this. It's somewhere in my contract. We're going to check in with each other. We're going to talk about how we're feeling, what stuck with you from last week. Then we're going to talk about the next 5 characteristics, which are worship of the written word, individualism, and I'm the only one, defensiveness and denial, right to comfort, fear of open conflict and power hoarding, and finally urgency. And then we'll talk a little bit, we'll have some time hopefully for some questions and answers. So first, I always want to check, how are you feeling from last week? Survived, you came back, so that's a good thing. Some of you invited new people, so that's also a really good thing. But how are you feeling? And you really can tell me. I'm really asking.
I think it was positive. It was positive and provided a lot of definition, I think, around many issues that a lot of us have thought about and struggle with. And I thought you broke it down very nicely to make it easier for all of us, I think, to think about it. I'm looking forward to today to sort of get into some of the meatier parts of, how does this come across? How does this reflect in our society? And, I think many of us are concerned about what we see happening today, especially to our religion, as people who claim to be conservative, I think they're white supremacists in disguise. Particularly concerned, I don't want to over politicize this, but with a new Speaker of the House is frightening in many respects. So trying to learn more, because the first thing is to dealing with this is really understanding. So
absolutely.
Thank you. That's how I feel.
Yeah. Good morning. I was on Zoom last week and had the opportunity, I'm blessed to have the opportunity to see you. So there's Sundays that I have to be there in person. And I'm happy to be here with my fellow wonderful folks here, with you especially. Thank you.
When you said you look around and see if there are any people who look like you, it reminded me of a story of my daughter who went to the wrong classroom the first day of the class, and everybody in the room was black, and she didn't know what to do. She hated to stand up and run. She felt so uncomfortable, and she was telling me about it. And I said, well, now does it give you an inkling of what it's like to be black in a white world? And she said, well, that's different. In a way, it was a hard experience, I hope.
I very much appreciated how you pointed to the problem and you gave an antidote. Yeah. It allows you to get on some hook on how to work with this. And the difficult one is the white savior complex that I want to just keep working with in my own mind and its behavior.
And I'm so glad that you brought that up because we're going to get into that. I know, I'm like, whoo. So I just want to say before we get into the content, if you feel like I'm stepping on your toes, guess what? I'm stepping on my own as well. I am tap dancing all over my toes. Okay, so do not feel like just because I'm up here and talking about this, that I have somehow ascended beyond all of this. I have not. I'm very human and I'm an American, and all of these things come up for me as well. And it's just knowing and being able to recognize when that's the reason that you're thinking what you're thinking versus it being the truth or really taking a look at the situation. So that's one of those things that I also have to practice. So don't feel bad if you're like, oh, this was me, it was me. It's okay, it's all of us. And it's all of us about something. So don't worry. I'm also stepping on my own toes. So here's why I'm checking in with you all. It's the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon or the frequency illusion. This happens a lot when we're doing this work. It's also called the blue car effect. This is what happens when you go out into the world and you have, let's say you just purchased a blue car. You are like, yes, this is the car I want. This is so unique. Nobody else has it. I've got this. This is my blue car. And then you get out on the road and every other car you see is blue car. This is one of the attacks that we hear about doing this work, because people say, oh, well, you just learned it, so you're going to see it more often. That's not necessarily what's happening. When we wake up to, or we have our lens opened to new ideas, sometimes we can start to see them in places and we are like, it's everywhere. Part of it is we're heightened and we see it. And part of it is, that's that internal bias kind of going as well. That's okay. It happens. There's a reason that we talk about it. So this is one of the other things that happens. This work is public work. This has to be enacted out in public, but it's also personal work. And so that is the part where we have that weird kind of tension between what can I do about this and how am I living my life? What kind of world do I want to see? What kind of society do I want to have? All of this is very public work, because as we become aware in ourselves and we understand these things and we process them and we're brave about it, because sometimes we just can ask the question and we don't know what the answer is. And that's okay. It's okay to have questions about this. I want you to. It's the best possible thing, because that means you're going to learn and you're going to get to a different place in your own personal growth. But it's public work. So it's hard to just kind of learn and do the internal work that comes along with it. I'm also going to talk a little bit about woke culture, because this has been one of those things, one of the terms that's started to be thrown around, and it's a criticism. We're going to deal with that head on. The first time the phrase woke was spoken, it was by a performer activist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, named Erica Badu. And she told everyone to stay woke. And what that meant was stay awake. Don't go back to sleep. Somehow that's morphed into, oh, you are too aware and too critical of the things that you see. That is not what being awake means. It is simply, I am awakened. I can see what's going on in the world. I understand what's going on in the world, and I have a lens to do that from. That's so some people may say, oh my gosh, wow. So I guess you went to one of those woke sessions now. So now you're just gonna be woke all the time. It's not a bad thing. You are awake and you are aware. That's the best thing that can happen. It's what comes next that makes the difference. Are you gonna do something? Let's just quickly review, just in case anyone missed last week. Here are the first 5. Fear. Excuse me. Perfectionism, one right way, paternalism, and objectivity. That's all one, I know. I'm like, that one was like. The myth of the qualified. The either or and the binary, and progress is bigger or more, and quantity over quality. All right. Everybody have their seatbelts on. All right, here we go. We're going to talk about characteristic 6. Worship of the written word. This one is difficult to talk about. Here's why. We base our faith on a book, don't we? On the Bible. And we have those things as a touch point, as a base for our faith and our belief, right? So written word, good, right? I think everybody can agree, yes, we're good. Yeah. But here's how these things get twisted into something negative. The written word has also been used to take people's lands, their bodies, their culture, their ancestry. Every form that everything, every way that you have to access any kind of help requires a what? Form. You got to fill something out. Or we don't know who you are. Or we don't know this. We don't know that. Think about that. Who does that impact directly? People who have not had either success in education, people who have been left out in education, people who have delays or developmental concerns that keep them from being able to read. This is very much a reading society, even though we don't read as much as we should, and God knows it's the truth. We don't read as much as we should, but all of that is based on reading. To get new ideas, you have to be able to read. So we are creating through this process of all of this has to be written down, it has to be written down, it has to be written down. What do people tell you when you have to document something at work? Write it down or it didn't happen, right? It all comes out of here. Is it bad to write things down? No. But where this gets tricky is what are we requiring people to write down? What are we requiring them to give up about themselves? And are we taking that piece of paper and then saying, this is the only thing that you are is this form? We do that a lot of times. And this comes into play when we're talking about people who are trying to access help or assistance in a public setting. Happens a lot. And it's hard. We use a lot of legalese in these forms, and people can't fill them out correctly, or they can't fill them out at all sometimes. And we don't consider that when we're asking people to do that.
I just want to mention that I think one thing that has happened even more recently than the written word is the digital word. And for people who don't have access to a computer, don't have access to the internet, don't have Wi-Fi in their homes, whatever it might be. And so many of these things that you're speaking of with regard to government certainly now has gone to computerized forms. And that puts another barrier in between some people.
Absolutely. And what a great point. That's the point. We keep progressing, don't we? Now it used to be okay that it was written down. Now it's got to be on the internet, and you got to send an email, and there's all of these things. Oh, now we don't have a paper one anymore. It's all digital. You're going to have to go over here, log on, figure out your email, and literally think some people you are speaking a foreign language to them. And they're like, what? What? What are we doing with those people?
And it's being used, abused. People are more easily voting or voting at all.
That's
That's
right.
really the most serious form of democracy and how this is proven.
Absolutely. Because you guys know, outside of New Mexico, because thank God for some of the laws that are here in New Mexico, I have to say. Outside of here, you have to have sometimes an address, and you have to be able to be at a specific site. This is one day. You may forget it if you have to take time off work to go vote. Forget that. No. Because if you're getting paid by the hour, guess what that is? A whole day that you've lost of income. So now we're talking about all of these things. People say, oh, a driver's license. That's a simple thing to do. Why doesn't everybody have a driver's license? What do you have to take to get a driver's license?
Written test.
A written test.
Helps to have a car too.
Helps to have- or access to one, right? You have to have some kind of proof that you've been paying bills at this address, or do you live there? Oh, do you live there? Yeah, of course I live there. But think about also what happens on a lot of the pueblos. It's a P.O. box. They go somewhere to pick up their mail because there aren't street names and there aren't all of these other things. So you can't pinpoint where someone lives. That's another barrier. And we always try to make it sound really nice and really cute. And it just seems like it all just makes sense. Oh, no, we're not trying to keep people from voting. But here's all the stuff that you need to have because it's such a big right and responsibility, right? That's what we say. And then we create barriers. We don't extend voting times or voting situations. By doing that, you are saying these are the people that matter who can fit inside of this box. And anybody outside of that, whether you're an hourly worker, whether you're a person of color who may not have childcare or something like that, if you don't have transportation, if you're a senior citizen and you would love to go vote, but you don't have a way to get there. All of that is cutting off access. And we know what it's like to not have access, right? In this day and time. It's hard, and it's getting harder. We also have to deal with a little bit of this, and this is a fact. The more wealthy, white, cisgender, and male you are, the more laws there are to protect you. The more protections exist for you. And that's hard.
because we wrote it down first.
That's exactly why. Because it was written down by the wealthy, cisgender, and male people, right? Guess who they didn't think about? Me, their children. any of those people. Never thinking, not even one time, oh, maybe this will change.
Well, we wrote it down so it wouldn't change.
That's
So we
why.
could continue to be in power.
Absolutely. I'll give you a very local example. Here in the United States, here in New Mexico, when the United States took over the land, they said, oh, don't worry, anyone who is of Mexican descent or wherever you're from, don't you worry. We, as long as you can legitimately prove that you own that land, we'll let you keep owning it. What's the problem with that?
Legitimately, who defines it?
Who defined legitimate? They did. What did they consider legitimate? A piece of paper, a deed with your name on it. How did people operate here? With deeds? No, that's the Hernandezes. They live over there. Their whole family lives over there. That's their land. Nobody ever wrote it down. Sorry. Not fair. So 55% of the land of Mexican land went to the United States.
Yeah, and I think with that, the written treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, yeah, thanks, Lynn, were guaranteeing that the culture and language would be maintained in this area. Guaranteeing that, which means that it would be unusual to have any script that wasn't also in English and Spanish
Absolutely.
everywhere.
Mhm.
You say nothing of children being able to retain their native language and be considered second class because they spoke who they are.
Absolutely. So you can't write it down exactly the way you want to, because you think, I don't want anybody to judge me. So let me write it down very vaguely. I think everybody will know what I mean by this. And just go forward. So now you're creating this class system, right? That says these people are the best, and these are next, and these people are next, and we're not even on top of it. Because that's what happened. Then there's a misconception that if you chose to write something down, you must be really smart. Can I just tell you that people write down stupid things? Okay. I'm just gonna tell you there, I said it, okay? They write down really stupid things a lot. And they sometimes say, oh, well, it's written down. So we get this whole thing. I'm gonna tell you about becoming a doctor, a little bit of becoming a doctor. There's this whole thing where you have to quote people that have already said whatever you're gonna say. Here's the problem with that. I can read something really dumb and quote it. And then because I quoted it, someone else will say, well, look, there's two people that said it. And now that it's just a quote fest and it has nothing to do with reality or factuality. It doesn't matter if it's a fact or not. Somebody bothered to write it down, so I'm going to repeat it. And now it's a fact. People have been wrong. I hate to tell you this. Not a lot has changed in that department. People are wrong sometimes. And so when we look at what was written down in historically events and the way that people were described in the language that they used, it was all very, very, very purposeful. Because listen to what I'm saying really quickly. Give a quick modern example. If I tell you someone is an English language learner, get in your mind what that might look like, right? Now, what if I say that someone is a master of a language other than English? Now, what do you think about? They went from being deficient in English to being equal in Spanish and not knowing the English words for it. Do you see how just that little bit of language change gives you a shift in your perception of what's going on? Don't worry, there's an antidote to all of that writing. We have to practice listening. The reason that that is the largest thing on that slide is because it's the most imperative. We must practice listening to one another. We have to value collaboration and collective knowledge. So our community may know some information that everyone else doesn't know. Case in point, here in beautiful Santa Fe, who do you think knows more about the land and how the environment works? Can you think of any group of people that may know how to handle the land that they've lived on for, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds, possibly thousands of years? Anybody know of anybody like that? Yeah, maybe we should listen. Because there are ways of knowing, and it may be caught up in a story. It may be caught up in an illustration, but those are facts. And they're giving you information that's coded. Reminds me of something else that we have written down that we can refer to. So it's also important to honor other ways of expressing. Okay, let everybody express. Everybody doesn't have the same way of expressing themselves, and giving space and being open to that is so important. And make sure that when you're writing that you're not vague. Once you do decide we are a group, here is what we are deciding that we are going to do, and this is how we are going to behave. Write it down and make sure that there's no wiggle room in the interpretation. Make sure that it can't be read in a different. So let's go on to number 7. Oh, yes.
I just,
Sorry.
Sharon, when you said, I was happy to learn that Erica Badu came up with the notion of woke culture.
Yes.
And then I knew that she often wore head wraps like you have on. I'm like, if you channel it.
I must be.
Productions. It's clear.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Yes, one of the things that she did. Any other comments on, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm rushing a little.
Just want to go back to what Erica Badu. I listened to a BBC podcast about the word woke and how it came about, and it actually said it started back in the 20s in Black culture. Now, maybe that was in Britain, but I was pretty sure they were talking about the US. So it may not be quite as recent.
Right, but the way, and I want to clarify that. So what I'm talking about specifically is this national kind of opening up to using the term, because yes, within Black culture, it's been around forever. But before that, it wasn't really I wasn't going to say that in a room full of everyone. If I'm talking to people that I'm coding language to, I'm going to talk to them in that way. But for someone to say it on a national stage where everyone could kind of hear it and it became a concept, that's what I'm crediting Erica Badu with. And thank you for bringing that up. Yes.
I'd like to ask about the word race, because there's no scientific basis for race.
That is
There's racism, there's ethnicity. And just yesterday I got my COVID shot. And of course, on the form, they have a race question. So I've started to cross them out because I just wonder what your thoughts are about this. So I'm wondering if the persistence of the word race on every single form that we fill out is actually hurting us from looking at everyone as a human being.
Absolutely. And I would 100% agree with that. And that's why you're starting to see a little bit of a revolution in that. you'll see when it asks for your gender, it will now say male, female, I don't know. I identify as male, I identify as female. So this language is slowly changing because we have to kind of open our minds to, if we're gonna ask the question, let people answer. It's the same thing that happened with the race question. It used to be you can only choose one. Everybody remembers like the old bubble tests that we used to have to fill out. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit of PTSD there, but I'm like bubble sheets. Sorry, but one of those things that you can only choose one. You have to be black or white. So what are children who are multiple race? What do they select? They either choose one parent and discriminate against the other, or something has to happen if I have to choose one. But now we're starting to acknowledge, oh, people can be made up of many races, and it's okay for them to acknowledge and feel a part of all of their cultural backgrounds. So that's just kind of some of the stuff that's going on now. I would love to see that not be a consideration. And I think that's a bigger conversation. And we have to push the issue just like everything else. If that's really what we're saying, like, I don't want you to throw me in a category. Because that's what's happening. That's what it's used for. Remember, we talked about last week that oversimplification. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah, that's one. Yeah.
But it's also like going to a conference. I've gone to 1,000 in my lifetime, and they do a survey at the end, and they say, this is anonymous, you know, and then they ask, are you white, black, indigenous, blah, blah, blah. Well, if I circle Black African American, and you look around the room. I do not know who that is.
You gotta run into these
Exactly who I am. So,
Absolutely. In this room, you have a 1 in 3 chance. Your odds are pretty good. You're gonna get. So no, that's an excellent point as well. So we have to think about that, take that into consideration when you are in a position where you get to select what those choices are, or you get to select that kind of information and what you're going to gather about the people that you're looking at. Use this lens and remember that. Yes.
I understand everything and I agree with what has been said with regard to that it's too simplistic, it's too whatever. However, I also think in terms of data collection, and I mean, there's the flip side of that in terms of seeing, okay, let's see how many cases of tuberculosis we had in the Pueblo population. And if you don't know if these people, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's other data to be gathered that's legitimate. So I think it's one of those more nuanced things, which is what you were talking about last week in terms of it's not right or wrong. It needs to be fixed.
Right. Yeah.
But
and that's it. We need to make the adjustments.
Yeah.
Is this information relevant to race?
Exactly.
That's the question. If you're looking at how a specific, like, let's say we're studying COVID, I may want to know how it's impacted the Black community.
Right.
So I'm going to need that question on there, right? I need to know who's identifying with the Black community or the Asian community or whichever community, right? I need to know that information. When I am asking questions about what you like to watch on TV, do I need to know your race?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Well, and I also think that it legitimizes that there is such a thing as race.
There isn't.
And there isn't. No, I know. That's what I'm saying. So when you see that on there, it reinforces the idea that there is such a thing. Whereas if it were worded differently, like, do you live on Pueblo land? And whatever,
Yes,
I mean,
and that's
in
the one,
the
right.
example that I was using, yours
Then
would be
that's the
something
question.
different, but it needs to be something other than using that term.
Absolutely.
I think there are terms like ethnicity or cultural
Yeah.
heritage. You don't have to use the word race.
Or
Because I
geography,
think
or,
it
yeah,
reinforces the idea, and it is
Exactly.
not scientific.
exactly.
Henry Gates has talked about this, 30% of quote Black Americans have white genes.
Yes,
So anyway, I'm involved with some workshops and we've taken that off. It's just
Yeah.
ethnicity, people can write that down. And
right.
we get grant funding and now if they have the word race on there, I make a note, would you review use of this term? Is this
Absolutely.
really valid?
That's a very good point. One more question.
Well, actually, my son was born in Kenya,
Mhm.
because we were living there and working there. And, then we moved to Asia and, we are currently in Taiwan. But my son, who was 13, went to Louisiana to stay with family and spend a year in the United States. And when he went to register at the junior high school, after going through these tests and getting to I don't know, it's a type of school that's not local and specializes in the arts
Mhm.
in Louisiana. So he went to the office and they said, you have to register. He said, okay. He said, they said, so where were you born? And he said, I was born in Kenya, but I'm a United States citizen. And then they said, so what race are you? He said, oh, I must be African American.
Right.
Not black at all. He's Japanese American in terms of nationality, which makes him Asian American. So, it was really weird.
Absolutely that point, exactly. My best friend, her family, she has a older sister and a younger brother. All of them were born in different countries. Her older sister was born in Tunisia. She's African American. She's she's Lebanese and American. But because of where she was born, so we have to be careful about our language or understand and really ask the question that we're really trying to ask. It's like, and if you're ashamed to ask the question that you're really trying to ask, maybe don't ask. I'm just saying, if we can't be honest about what we're asking, don't ask it. Yes.
I think this is related somehow. In that, when Netflix first started, they asked people, what kind of films do you like to look at? And I guess people put documentary, whatever, but then they found that wasn't effective. So they started tracking the movies people actually watched, which were very different than what they said they preferred.
Absolutely. It's the same thing. Ask the question you're really trying to ask or don't ask it at all. Okay, next characteristic. Individualism and I'm the only one. We're going to take a look at individualism first. It's focusing on determining who's racist, who's not racist, instead of thinking about the system of racism. So when we focus in and we say, aha, I found one. Not helpful to any of this work, okay? It's not helpful. We don't look for these things. It's part of the system. And when we understand that these things that we do sometimes have a racist background, then we understand the systematic nature of racism. If we were having a KKK gathering today, we were having one right now, and you asked people to raise their hands if they were racist, do you know not a single one of them would raise their hand? No, no, oh, no, I'm not racist. I just think that, people who came from a certain area happen to have better traits and all of the, then that's what it is, right? So just let's be careful of that individualism and pointing out it used to be the N word. The N word, if you said it, if you had ever said it, bam, cut and dry, you were a racist, and that's the end of it. Or is it a bigger picture? Because you don't ever have to say that word to be a terrible person, to treat people terribly, to do all of those things that say that your actions that say that you're racist. You don't ever have to do it. You can still be racist. We also have this idea that it is our own personal job to solve every problem. I'm just going to invite you to lay your cape down. Thank you so much for your efforts, but it's going to take all of us to do it. So you can't take on the whole weight of racism onto your shoulders. It's not your fault. There is nobody in this room that is the cause of racism. But everybody in this room has been impacted by it. So we have to get away from that individualized, just me kind of mindset. Because it leads to valuing competition instead of cooperation. Who's the fastest? Who's the best? Who's the tallest? Who's the shortest? We do this all the time, don't we? And we say that's where our values lie. It's not true. Now, I'm the only one. This is, okay, remember I said we were going to step on my feet? Yeah, I'm doing it right now, okay? If something's done right, I have to do it myself. I'm like, ow. We do that though. We go out all rosy the riveter and, oh man, what? The car needs to be fixed. I can fix it. I can watch YouTube just like anybody else. I can figure it out. But we take on too much. And all of that is based on a fear of losing control. But if you have control, I hate to tell you, it's an illusion. Let one thing happen. Example, we have a lot of people who, before the pandemic, everyone was like, they're going to take our guns. We better go ahead and get guns, get all the ammo that you can get, because it's going down, right? And so people just stockpile all of these guns and ammo and all of this stuff. And then the world shut down because of something you could breathe in. Who did you shoot then? You could have had all the bullets in the world. You couldn't have shot down COVID. It was in the air. So we focus sometimes and we have this illusion that we can control what happens. And then we are reminded that none of us are in control of any of this. It can all shut down today. Did anyone else ever experience anything even remotely close to that in their lifetime? Where we couldn't go to work. You couldn't go to work. Usually if they make you do anything, you're gonna go to work, okay? They were like, no, everybody stay home. Anybody remember wiping down their groceries? Yeah.
I remember taking the risk because I said, I am not wiping down.
I remember these videos of parents as soon as the schools were closed down. And it's funny now, and I couldn't stop laughing, but it was real fear that people were experiencing. But some of them would show up to the school, no lie, and trash bags. Not kidding, arms cut out, head cut out. They're there and they're literally spraying their whole child down. Like, I mean, like it's body spray. The kids like, this lights all in their eyes and their mouth, and they're all screaming, and they're like, no, stop, you're not bringing this into here. We were scared. We had an illusion that we could control what happened. And we found out, oh boy, you cannot. Then we also have this idea that we are going to have very charismatic leaders. And then we're going to romanticize them and say that they are above reproach. And then that means I've got to cover up anything that they do that's wrong. I've got to ignore anything that they do that's not right. I have to deny it because no, they're great leaders, so they're perfect, right? It's not how that works. Here are the antidotes. We have to do our own personal work. I wish that I could say, ta-da, you're all anti-racist, yay! And we could just throw it, I mean, you'd all lift me up on your shoulders, it'd be a great thing. Can't happen. We also need to think about what we reward. Do we reward competition or do we reward collaboration? Because the world expects us to collaborate. That's how a global majority views this. They collaborate. We have to honor the process as much as the product. So I'm going to give you an example from education. If I am doing process art, I give children the materials. We're going to make little pumpkins. Here you go. Here's crepe paper. Here's glue. Here's some paper. Now make a pumpkin. If I'm doing product art, I say, now take your little piece of paper and put it exactly right here. Are you doing it that way? Are you doing it that way? Now I have to go back and monitor every child because I don't care about what it looks like at the end. I don't care that they're learning. I care that it looks exactly the same as everybody else. Then we have to create a shared definition of leadership. So not just the person on top that gets to decide what leaders do, it should be everybody and it should be agreed upon. Understand that leadership is dynamic and it includes everybody. I'm going to try to go like an auctioneer through these last few points. Next one, defensiveness and denial. Those in power view criticism as threatening. So if you're in power and someone says, hey, you didn't make a good choice, then you are automatically like, well, yes, I did. I did the best I could. And you're starting to defend yourself when there's no need. Then others are forced to tiptoe around kind of your defensiveness. We all are familiar with this, right? Have you had that boss before? Or you've seen that boss before? That you can't ever say anything is wrong. You just have to praise everything they do. Because the second you say something is wrong, they're like, enemy. And they're ready to get you. Participation in anti-racist work means that you're free from racism. I can't do that for you. I'm so sorry. The antidotes are understand the link between defensiveness and fear. So if you see a leader that is getting very fearful and very defensive, they are very fearful. So if you see that defensiveness, and then you get to make a plan. Hey, can we talk about why you feel defensive about this? Or I'm hearing that you said a lot of, you were pretty angry and upset. Let's talk about that. Ask the person what they're defending. So you need to know what they're even defending. And then we have to call others and ourselves in. This is the concept that is very important. We often say, I'm going to call you out. I'm going to call this organization out. I'm going to call that organization out. They didn't do this and they didn't do that. But that leads to shame and guilt. So why don't we call each other in? That's different. That says, hey, let's talk about it. Hey, I saw something that happened. Let's have a conversation about it. Number 9, I'm going to go. I told you I'm going like an auctioneer. Right to comfort. Only certain people deserve to be comforted. And we scapegoat those who raise the issues because it is their fault They brought up this issue and now we have to think about it and it's all their fault. We do that. Right to comfort also looks like, I'll give an example from my own life. On Facebook, I have a lot of friends that I went to school with. I went to a private Christian school growing up. All of my friends, they posted all kinds of stuff. One day, one of them posted someone's receipt for their groceries that they had found on the ground. It was lobster and steak. And at the bottom it said EBT. And they were like, I cannot believe those people are eating better than me. And I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean those people? So people don't deserve to eat steak and lobster if they save their money? Is that what you're saying? Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. Okay, then what are you saying? What are you saying? So you have to do a certain amount of things because this is a treat for me, so it has to be a treat for you. Guess what? People who have lived on the coast their whole lives, regardless of money, have always eaten lobster and fish. And if you live in the interior, we may all buy a cow together and it feeds everybody in the whole village. It's not about money. It's about what you choose to do. And we can't say to people that you can't choose to do this because you haven't earned it. Same thing that we do to people who are homeless. And we see them out there and they may have mental health issues and they may be on drugs and they may be abusing alcohol. Guess what? If you're ever going to do any of those things, that's probably the time you want to do it. Think about it. Who wants to escape more than somebody that doesn't have a roof over their head? Who doesn't want to not think about that? If I don't know where my next meal is coming from, that's pretty stressful. And you're going to want to escape that constant feeling. That's why people choose drugs sometimes, because they're trying to escape pain. And we're judging them and saying, oh, how could you use your money for that? Guess what? Your $10 is not going to get them a house. It's not going to get them a hotel room. Even if you do it for a whole month, guess what? What are they going to do at the end of the month? How are they going to sustain it? Once again, big problems, and we try to make them so simple and so easy. We have also this fear of open conflict, and we don't want to have any kind of conflict. Many of us avoid it with our lives. Conflict is okay as long as it gets somewhere. So we have to hold that tension, and that's okay. Then we have power hoarding, which is just, there isn't enough power to go around, so I'm just going to keep all of it. You guys just do what I say, okay? That's making those rules for other people. The antidote is to understand, for this right of comfort, that discomfort is okay. We can sit with it. It is not the worst thing in the world to be uncomfortable for a few minutes. It'll pass. But feel through it. Make sure that you are involving people in your power sharing. When you have a structure and you're expecting everyone else to do whatever it is that you say needs to be done, that's not power sharing. And then develop your own emotional intelligence so that you are able to handle when conflict arises. We're not going to run from conflict. That's not how to work it. You get uncomfortable, you dig in, you figure out what's going on. Number 10, I knew we were going to make it. Is this urgency? Woo! Feeling that right now. It's difficult to be inclusive and democratic. So let's not do that. If I make the decisions, it's faster. Of course it's faster. I'm just making up my mind. But if I'm making up my mind for everybody else, that's the problem. It privileges those who process information quickly. Some of us are like this, bam, before it can get out your mouth, I already finished the sentence, I'm moving on to the next thought. The rest of us may be like, now what were you saying? Our minds work different. Then it encourages shame and guilt and that self-righteousness. Well, I'm quick Everyone else should be quick. And so, oh, I'm so sorry it took you longer to figure that out. You're just not as smart as I am. That, not healthy, right? But we do that. And you'll notice, what is it that they're hurrying up to do? It's never this work, is it? So when I'm talking about that sense of urgency, it's at now, do it now. You have to do it now. Get it done right now. Guess what? Very few things have to be done right this second. Usually it's the reality of it is, okay, here are the things that we really do need to do. But we don't get that. This is why this is hard when we're talking about social justice, because social justice is urgent. It conditions us into toxic thinking that, wow, I'm going to do it. I'm going to solve all these problems right now, and bam. If that were the answer, the Emancipation Proclamation would have made sure everything was fine. If that wasn't the answer, the 14th Amendment and the 13th Amendment would have made sure everything was fine. Nope, didn't work there either. Well, MLK would have solved all of our problems because it would have been just fine. Guess what? These things don't die. They're reborn over and over and over again. And so does our energy has to do the same thing. So embrace the yes and. So I'm not, what you're saying can be absolutely 100% true for you, and it doesn't mean that it's true for me. So I'm going to say yes because I believe what you say, and I'm going to add my experience. So instead of saying no, but we're going to say yes, and also this is true. We have to make realistic timelines that include time for individual input. We have to have time for that. Remember that everything takes longer than anyone ever expects. That is a fact. And I stand behind that 100%. You think it's going to be this short, and it always takes this much longer, every single time. Then you have to make a commitment to discuss and plan to put in those equity practices. We're almost done here. So here are just some of the important quotes that kind of anchor this learning today. I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things I cannot accept. Angela Davis said that. I'm not interested in picking up crumbs of compassion thrown from the table of someone who considers himself my master. I want the full menu of rights. That was Archbishop Desmond Tutu. When we identify where our privilege intersects with someone else's oppression, we'll find our opportunities to make real change. That was from the book, So You Want to Talk About This. And finally, my favorite author, I'm like, God bless her. When you get these jobs you have been so brilliantly trained for, just remember that your real job is that if you are free, you need to free somebody else. If you have some power, then your job is to empower somebody else. This is not a grab bag handy game. We're not all trying to just give me all this information. Guess what? This is specifically designed to share. And that is our job. This is what this saddles us with, is this. So with that, thank you all so much. Are there any questions? I'm just a minute over now.
I used to teach study skills, and they would always recommend to tell people that if you have to take a really hard class and you want to be successful, ask people who the best teachers are, because they'll help you through it. And I think Simesha is such a great example.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to second that. I've heard this lecture 3 or 4 times, but only once did I hear it and really get it. And that was today.
I'm wonder, because we're doing soul searching as a congregation about how to be different, and especially for those who come in as newcomers or as a non-dominant population, my representative is such. When you mentioned when you walked in the room and you had to sort of look around this flat screen to see if it was safe. Now that's so disappointing. But I'm asking really energetically, not, it's not that we can do anything about how we look.
Right.
Or who we are. But is there a difference in energy? Or things people we can do?
Absolutely.
And what would you suggest?
I would suggest involving activities and input from all of the community. If I'm celebrating, let's all celebrate. Something that happened here at First Presbyterian, when you guys, January 1st, when I was here. What an amazing time and an event. That was something that I personally recognized and was like, oh, watch night service. Yes. Those are the kinds of events and activities. So if you want to show how open and how sincerely you care about the community, involve them in their celebrations, celebrate with, join in, find out what you can do. And most importantly, because that's the thing, we don't want to assume what is going to be helpful for people. It's the same mistake people make a lot of times when good intentions, great intentions in the educational field. People are like, I'm going to have taco night for all the families, and we're going to have tacos because we're going to celebrate Mexican culture. Taco night typically does not have any people of color. Why? Why has that happened? Because it's not made for people. I don't need an event to go eat tacos. I'm gonna eat tacos whenever. Also, what time is it? Are the families who you are interested in reading and encouraging, are they even off work yet? Or have you made an event for yourself and said, we're gonna be diverse? So it's a very thin line between congratulating yourself for knowing this and involving the people the communities who you want to engage with. So it's really important to just be open, keep that kind of open mind and open heart. And when people give you that feedback, say thank you, take it into consideration.
To that end, I would invite us to support Rosario Torres, who is, has a friend who has come here to speak on her experience as a Mexican, American Mexican. And she has mounted a campaign to restore the forgotten cemetery of Guadalupe, cemetery behind the McDonald's on Supremacy. And she is working with the parish of Guadalupe to help them understand the responsibility for that plot of land, which is really forgotten people.
Yes.
So Rosario and all her resolve is lace people together to celebrate the Day of the Dead on Thursday night.
Absolutely.
5:30, I believe, but if you're interested in let me know, because I think it's about 5:30. Rosario said it's not to be a big thing, but it is a chance for some of us to stand up for her.
Yes.
In an event that's very formal. I've never walked in that cemetery before. It's full of companies. They've been trying.
Right.
No,
but that's
it's full of forgotten.
Absolutely. And absolutely. And remembering that when we see these opportunities, use them. Don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid to come and learn something new.
And with that said, I just wanted when you said the N word, you were talking about other things, and you mentioned the N word. It's such a trigger for me as a Black woman, as an African American. I'm in a book club with all white people, and we read lots of books, lots of novels, and there's the opportunities for the N word. Sometimes it's used on every page, sometimes it's used on every chapter. I came in and I had to remind my white friends, this is not your opportunity to speak that. Do not say that word in front of me. It does not give you license to use that word. Not only in front of me, but be aware of what you're doing. It's not okay with me, and it shouldn't be okay for you to say it alone with others, not around me. So don't do it. So that's my wish and my reminder for you all to just realize that word can be so very harmful and toxic to this day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what a great reminder. Once again, you wouldn't know that unless you engage, unless we have a conversation. Those things can't come out unless we're in a relationship.
Thank you, Simesha, for 2 weeks. And we saw you last January. Great to see you again. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much.